Hi, it's the Herd. I'm going to let you in on a secret, a big one. The key to having a great day starts with having a great night's sleep. And once I upgraded to a Casper mattress, life in the day got better because of the night. Sleeping on my old mattress was an issue. But thanks to Casper, I sleep through the night, 7-8 hours, and I'm not a great sleeper. It's an amazing experience. Invented with 2 high-tech foams, Casper gives you all the support you need. And it's not just me. Time magazine said, Casper mattresses, one of the best inventions of 2015. It ships for free in a box so small, you can't believe it holds a mattress. Make it simple to get from your front door to your bedroom. And try it for 100 nights risk-free. They'll come pick it up. If you don't love it, and I love mine, they'll refund you everything. No questions asked. Start having a great day by getting a better night's sleep. Like I did. Get a Casper. Try it at home. 100 nights with free shipping and returns. Go to Casper.com/relief and use the code RELIEF for $50 toward the purchase of your mattress. Casper.com/relief. Code RELIEF for $50 toward the purchase of your mattress. Casper.com. Terms and conditions apply.
This is The Herd, wherever you may be and however. You may be listening live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy joining me as always on a Monday, 1 hour from now, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. Plenty of both. In 1 hour from now, we're absolutely packed. You're finally healthy. Rough last week. Slept all weekend. Good to have you back.
Good to be back, Colin. I slept for 3.5 straight days.
And she's back and ready to go. And we're ready to go on a Monday morning. Folks, last night, NBC, you were watching the Super Bowl. Those are the 2 best teams. Dallas-Pittsburgh was an adorable pillow fight. You score, you score, you score, you score, you score, you score. Those were the 2 best teams. I'll take Belichick, Pete Carroll. You have Jason Garrett. I'm taking Russell Wilson, Tom Brady. You can have Dak Prescott. That was a Super Bowl. You go look at the box score this morning. First downs, virtually identical. Total yards, virtually identical. Yards per play, virtually identical. Penalties, virtually identical. Time of possession, virtually identical. 2 A coaches, 2 A quarterbacks. You know, it's funny, too, because Bill Belichick looks like coaches have always looked. Kind of grumpy, terse with the media. Pete Carroll doesn't. Pete Carroll's chewing gum going 100 miles an hour. He looks like a grad assistant with gray hair on the sidelines. He's like a college coach. He's pumping fist. And Russell Wilson, similarly, doesn't look like anybody that's ever played the game. I mean, the only reason Johnny Manziel gets drafted is Russell Wilson. Nobody was going to draft a 5'11", 207-pound guy who ad-libbed out of plays, Johnny Manziel, until you saw Russell Wilson, and everybody went, oh, he'll be just like Russell Wilson. Except he's not as smart, he's not as willful, he's not as driven, he's not as efficient, he's not as coachable. This is what is remarkable about Seattle. And I'll be honest with you. If I'm New England this morning, I'm playing them again. At least when New England plays again, I'll make the argument for New England, losing at home is not a bad thing. Because these 2 teams have a strong likelihood of playing again, and I can, for 2 weeks, if I'm Bill Belichick, say, couldn't beat them at home. You're going to have to play your best game. Seattle's going to go into that game thinking, we beat them in Foxborough. Advantage psychologically New England when they play, in all likelihood, on a neutral field. I know it's only Thanksgiving, but you're watching that game last night, and you're seeing what I'm seeing. You're seeing 2A coaches, 2A quarterbacks, real defenses, unbelievable psychological warfare on that game. I mean, all sorts of chess matches going on. Pittsburgh and Dallas is a pillow fight. I mean, that's you score, I score, you score, I score, you score, I score. I can't keep a lead. No, I can't keep a lead. Those are good teams, too. Those last night, those are the best teams in the league. Here's what's remarkable about Pete Carroll has created. And we talked about this last week. When you're a really, really, really good business, it doesn't matter where Starbucks is. Airport, your local neighborhood, Beijing, Boise, Birmingham. Doesn't matter. It's the same coffee and the same vibe. Starbucks travels well. Good brands travel well. I got news for you. Seattle home, Seattle away, I can't tell the difference. When this team was younger, when the Seahawks were younger 3 years ago, they were better at home than away. But as they have aged as a brand, as they have aged as a team, Seattle home and away, getting the same team. I'm getting the same team. Russell Wilson home and away, getting the same guy. Pete Carroll home and away, Seattle defense home and away, I'm getting the same coffee. That is a quality brand. And what Seattle has done under Pete Carroll is remarkable. Do you realize Seattle is the only NFL team? They're the only NFL team since 2012. 4-year sample now. That's a big sample. 4 years. They're the only NFL team with no losses over 10 points. That's unbelievable. I don't know what I get Pittsburgh week to week. Steelers half to half. I don't know what the heck I'm getting. New York Giants, quarter to quarter, I don't know what I'm getting. Philadelphia Eagles, Atlanta Falcons, even the good teams in this league, Minnesota, Green Bay, I don't know what I get half to half. Packers are always a better first half than a second half team. Seattle hasn't lost a game by 10 or more, or over 10 points in 4 years. And they only have 2 losses over 8. It's incredible. They're a little smaller and a little faster, and they hit a little harder. And I don't think I've ever appreciated Pete Carroll. I mean, I always knew he was a good coach because I have all my friends in football, and I ask them, they're like, he's quirky, but he's a good coach. I think Pete's a great coach. The fact that Seattle goes on the road after an emotional game on Monday Night Football, short week, they've been on the field, their defense, in the last month more than any other defense, and you got that performance? That is incredible. What other team could go into New England, short week, exhausted physically, and get that emotional peak? Cowboys aren't doing that. Steelers aren't doing that. They don't have the maturity. They just don't. Those were the 2 best teams in the NFL last night. Now, at the end of the game, and again, to me, it was a chess match. If they'd have played in Seattle, it would have been the same thing. At the end of the game, there's the play to Gronkowski. I had no problem with the call whatsoever. What did I say last week on Monday Night Football? I came on 1 week ago, and I said, I think Seattle is the hardest team in the league to officiate because Seattle is so aggressive. They play a psychological game with the officials. That over the course of 3.5 hours, and I compared them to the Utah Jazz with Stockton Malone, Coach Jerry Sloan, they were so pushy, shovey, grabby, so physical that over the course of 3.5 hours, officials begin, because they don't want to decide every play, they don't want to blow the whistle for 3.5 hours, officials start letting more and more and more and more go. If that play is the first play of the game, an officiating crew calls a flag. But instead, here's the final play of the game. I have no problem with the call, and Seattle's aggressiveness for 3.5 hours is why this wasn't called.
Gronk goes to the far side. He's got Chancellor on him. Brady. He's going to throw the ball up for Gronkowski, who pushes off, and it's incomplete in the end zone. He pushed off, and the ball sails over his head in the end zone with 11 seconds left on 4th down. The Seahawks are going to take over on the 1-yard line.
Don't have a problem with it. That's a football play right there. That is a football play right there. And when you watch that game for 3.5 hours, that play was a football play. It was not interference. All right, let me shift gears now. In every Monday, I do something where Colin is right or Colin was wrong. It's on Monday, and we do it for about 5 minutes. I make all sorts of mistakes, and then there are some times I'm pretty good. So I'm going to do just one today, an hour early. I will not include this in an hour, but I'm going to do just one before I get to the Steelers-Cowboys, because I'm going to get to that. But I'm going to do just one a little early. So go ahead, John.
Where Colin was right?
For the last 8 weeks, the American sports media, I mean everybody except moi, has said once the Hillary-Trump campaign ends, the ratings will bounce back. It's not about Kaepernick. The ratings have been down. It's not about the penalties. It's not about this blah, 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 blah. Take the emotion out of it. Trump and Hillary figure out who's president, give it a couple of weeks, and the ratings will come back. America didn't suddenly start disliking football. The consumption's been better than ever. People are just not watching as long, and ratings come from two things, total audience and time spent viewing. The ratings are in from last night. Through the roof. You know what else is in this morning? Ratings from the Sunday political shows. Down, down, down. You can listen to other shows, certainly, but if you want the straight skinny without emotion, the truth, and you'll hate me most of the time for it, this is the show. People didn't suddenly hate the league because of Colin Kaepernick. That's what they talk about after a few Heinekens at the local bar. This was about the most polarizing election of our lives. It's now over. Political shows down, often 30% this past 4 or 5 days. NFL ratings yesterday, up, 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 up. All right, around the corner, we have, I got to tell you my takeaway last night, on yesterday on the Steelers-Cowboys, because I have one really strong takeaway, and I'm going to get to that next. Great to have you in. What a weekend of football. College Saturday, NFL Sunday, Patriots, Seahawks. In my opinion, you were watching the Super Bowl preview last night. Now, Pittsburgh and Dallas was wildly fun. Best pillow fight I've ever seen. Wildly entertaining. I love, even my wife, it like came in just like, can I just sit here? And I'm like, let me ponder that. Are you allowed in my man room to watch with me? Okay, come on in.
Do you say she can't ask any questions if she sits there?
No, she starts talking about what's a Nickelback, and then I'm like, okay, out.
That's sweet.
No, I'm not into sweet. There's the exit. Let's talk football. So she came in last night, and I said, no questions. Just watch the game. No questions.
You tell her Nickelback is a band.
That's exactly right. She asked a bunch of questions, and I don't have patience for it, and I can't hear Joe Buck talking and Troy Aikman talking. I'm like, stop talking. Just come in and watch the football game. So we had ground rules. She came into the room, and I said, ground rules, no talking. Devices down, watch the game, and love me. So she agreed to those.
And love you. That's not fair.
So she agreed to those terms. So I'm watching the game. It was just fantastic. But here we go again. Again, Uncle Colin is ahead of the curve on this. Big Ben Roethlisberger goes 37 of 46. 408 yards. At home. And you lose. Mike Tomlin, once again, this team is all over the map and not buttoned up. Face mask penalties, a hit out of bounds on one of the next to last drives for Dallas. Listen, the four best teams in this league, most talented, look like, in no order, Dallas, New England, Seattle. I'd throw Pittsburgh up there. Which one don't you trust in a big spot? And last night, after this game, there was a real moment here. You don't believe me. Ben Roethlisberger, for the second time in a month, came out and criticized the coaching staff. Listen to this.
They're a great football team. Like I said, we undisciplined and not accountable. That's why they're one of the best in the business, and we're not right now.
Whoa. Now, folks, there is a big difference, a monumental difference between voting for a candidate and putting his or her sign in your yard. Okay, you put a sign in your yard for whoever you're going to vote for. That's more than a vote. You're a messenger. You'll go to a cocktail party and talk about it. You put a bumper sticker on your truck for a candidate or a sign in your yard. That's not just voting. You're now an ambassador. You are proud of it. You will fight for it. You will argue. You will call radio shows. That's why those signs are significant. The media never spotted it, but there were all sorts of red signs all over America. Media didn't want to pay attention to. There is similarly a huge difference between being unhappy as a star quarterback and calling out your coach. Okay, you do understand. A lot of quarterbacks are unhappy. Big Ben has called out his head coach 2 times publicly in the last month. That is putting a sign in your yard and a bumper sticker on your truck. That is not just voting. That is promoting. That is not just criticism of Mike Tomlin. That is telling everybody in football, your owner, your general manager, people that have power, I'm not happy with who is coaching us. That is one of the big moments of the year. Been on this for a couple of months. Good businesses are consistent businesses. The Steelers are talented. You do not know what you get series to series, game to game, half to half, play to play. You don't know what you get. You know what you get with Seattle effort. You know what you get with New England. You know what you get with Kansas City and Andy Reid. Same low-scoring, tough, physical football team. No mistakes. They take it. They don't giveth every week. You know what you get with the Steelers. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben, all sorts of players. All sorts of players. And here's the truth is, once you're successful, there's a force field. He won a Super Bowl. It's like Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow made 40-Year-Old Virgin, one of my favorite movies of all time. I think my favorite comedy of all time, after Miss Doubtfire, which is like the best movie ever.
What?
Yeah, that's not even a comedy. That's just great cinema. But I'm telling you, 40-Year-Old Virgin's great. Since then, Judd Apatow, a lot of swing and misses. But he was successful. Same with Johnny Depp. When he's not playing a pirate or a person with scissors for fingers, he stinks. But once you had a big one, once you get the Super Bowl, once you do Edward Scissorhands, once you do 40-Year-Old Virgin, force field. And all the arrows just hit the force field and drop off. Like Mike Tomlin right now, that team, you don't know what you're getting. They gave that game away. They gave that game, and that's nothing on Dallas. Dallas went on the road. I mean, Dallas is what Dallas is. Great offensive line, good running game, fun to watch, a lot of points. I mean, it's like 35, 34, 29. You get all sorts of points with the Cowboys every week. I don't love their defense, and I think their pass defense is really, really marginal at best. But this is not me clobbering Dallas. Dallas is one of the better teams in the league. Pittsburgh, though, wow. Wow. Big Ben came out and clobbered him. That is a bumper sticker on a truck. That's not just voting, that's promoting. That's for the owner to hear. That is for the owner to hear. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Here's another bad loss. The Packers lost 47-25 to the Titans, of all teams. And we heard Aaron Rodgers explain why he thinks his team lost last week. And here's his explanation for this week.
I was proud of our preparation. I had a great week. Ha had a great speech in the locker room. I mean, he's a great leader for us. We just didn't execute very well. I think guys are ready to play, but it comes down to execution. You can say all the right things and be prepared as possible, but it comes down to execute when you get out there, and we didn't execute as well enough on offense to kind of give us some momentum early.
Well, he got popped late.
Yeah, and in all fairness, last week it seemed like he was putting the blame on everyone but himself, and he actually did take some of the blame this time, and he said that it starts with him, and he was 31 for 51, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, but they were playing from behind. So are we putting too much of the blame on Aaron Rodgers?
Here's my takeaway. I watched that game yesterday. I like Marcus Mariota. Younger, better mood, taller, stronger, more athletic, and just as accurate, and doesn't ad-lib. I watched that game yesterday. Everybody loves Aaron Rodgers. You know what I like? I like Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota doesn't complain, not condescending, super, super accurate. Bigger, stronger. Marcus Mariota is becoming like the Derek Carr of the South. Like Derek Carr with Oakland. You're like, oh, that's a star. Dak Prescott in Dallas. Oh, that's a star. Nobody pays attention to the Tennessee Titans. Marcus Mariota is a star.
What do you think about him being a leader?
Oh, he's not a big talker, but when I watch him, you talk about consistent. Everybody's paying attention to Aaron Rodgers. I'm kind of off the Aaron Rodgers thing. It's like, okay, whatever. He and McCarthy, whatever. I watched that game yesterday, and I like the quarterback who I feel like knows exactly. One of the quarterbacks in that game, I feel like his team is rallying around, and it's not Aaron Rodgers.
Tony Romo will be active next week, but he will not be the starter. And there are reports now that he's willing to accept the backup role to Dak Prescott. And here's Jerry Jones on why you just can't take Dak out of the starting role right now.
Well, I think that the longer he plays like this, the more we have a chance to have another win. And everybody here wants to do only really one thing, is win. And there's nobody that would introduce any other issue or any other consideration other than do whatever it takes to win the game. So today, to be able to come out here with a win doesn't just obliterates any thought about any of the issues that you might have as to who's out on the field. This was a team unit.
I hate those locker room interviews
because you can't hear anything.
Not really. I can. My radio audience can. I could, but I listen. It's Dak's team now, so it's Dak's team.
There's a picture that I came across this morning where Dak was actually at the podium, which is a much better setting to do interviews because you can plug in your mic and get clear sound. And you see off to the distance is Jerry Jones just beaming at him like it's like his little baby boy. He's just so happy, and it doesn't look like the face of an owner who plans on taking Dak out of the starting role anytime soon.
I was looking at. Let me give you the points here. I was right. He's first of all, Dak's 5-0 on the road.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is not the Tim Tebow thing. Okay, this is not like Tebow was winning 10-6. If you look at what Dak has scored, I was just looking at the numbers. I mean, they're going on the road. Here's what Dallas has scored. Forget the defense. 35, 35, 29, 28, 30, 31, 24, 27. It doesn't matter what the name of the quarterback is.
No.
If my quarterback... Now, I still contend the offensive line is making everybody for Dallas look way... If you gave me Tampa's offensive line, you could take 8 points off all those scores. But Dallas has Dallas's offensive line, and Dak's playing very well, and he's composed. You're not going to pull him out. It's not the Tebow thing where he was winning like 12-9.
What impresses me the most is just his composure. That was a crazy game yesterday, and he could have lost it, especially for a rookie. But he just stays so composed, and it seems like he's really leading the team, which is great.
Yeah.
The last game of the night last night, I did not like the ending at all. But on the fourth down. From the 1 and goal, the Patriots, their final offensive play, Rob Gronkowski thought that he was being held by Cam Chancellor.
Right.
And it looked like to be insisting that he should have gotten that call. But after the game, they asked about it again, and he changed his mind a little bit.
I didn't get called. It is what it is. If it's not a PI to the refs, then it's not a PI to the refs. So play is what it is. You can't really change it.
I love that.
I love that it's very Patriots. I'm not shocked at all by Gronkowski's words there. But they shouldn't have been in that position in the first place.
That's right.
Where a last-second play at the end of the game could cost them the game. They just did not look like the Patriots at all last night. No. Their defense was terrible.
Listen, you're looking at great. You know what happens when you face a great team? There's going to be moments you look bad. Seattle's going to make you look bad. And there were times New England made Seattle look not so great. That's what happens when you face... Now, I think Seattle's roster's got more good players. That defense.
Really?
I think Seattle's got a lot of... their system, they got 3 different running backs. It's just... They got a lot of players.
I thought Richard Sherman looked great.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Well, he's one of the greatest players in league history. Not just one of the greatest running backs. He's one of the greatest players in the history of the league. A multi-time Pro Bowler, a Hall of Famer, the single-season rushing record, 2,100 yards and change, NFL rookie season rushing record, which could be broken by Ezekiel Elliott. Let's bring on Eric Dickerson to our show. And... the only one running back has ever run like you in the history of the league, and he is not you. Rashaan Salaam had that upright stance, but the great ones often play different. Nobody looked like Steve Young till Steve Dunk. Nobody looked like you as a runner until you. Okay, so you watch Ezekiel Elliott, and these Cowboy fans, they pelt me with hate mail because I keep saying, can we give the offensive line
a little love?
What if Ezekiel had the Rams O-line?
Oh, it would be a whole different animal. I just said that. I said that yesterday. I said if Zeke had the offensive line at the Rams, he had to run behind that offensive line, it would be way different. And that's not taking anything away from him. Just understand, offensive linemen are so important. They're the bread and butter of your football team, especially this Cowboys football team. When you look at that last run he had, it was like, man, I really believe I could have ran through that hole and made it to the end zone.
And how old are you right now?
56, and I think I might have dove in for the touchdown, but I might not have been any good for the next month. But I think I could have got there.
So, what do you make of Dak? Who do you compare him to?
Well, Colin, I saw Dak play in the preseason when he played the Rams, the first game of the season. And I'm like, man, who is this kid? And for me, accuracy is everything. And I'm not a quarterback. I'm not a quarterback guru. I'm not a quarterback. But when you can put the ball where it has to be, and he did it 3 times in that football game, I'm like, wow, this kid can throw the football. And when Tony got hurt and he came in, I said that this guy is going to be a good player. And in week 2, people said, I don't know. You got to bring Tony back. Tony got to rush back. I said, I don't think so. I think this guy is a real deal. He reminds me so much of Warren Moon. His composure, the way he stands in the pocket, his accuracy, the tight spiral he throws. I mean, he could be up for MVP. I mean, you could almost have co-MVPs. Him and Ezekiel Elliott could both be co-MVPs. That's how good both of them are playing right now, to me.
It's interesting. When you played, you could draft a running back. But now the basic narrative is don't draft running backs. I would imagine you're pro running back, but
of course.
But is Ezekiel to you now? I want Hall of Fame running back on great rookie running back. What does he do that you see that maybe I don't see as a running back?
Well, one thing he does is he really watches his block. Like, I'll say this much here: in the first couple of weeks, because I talked to Zeke, I was texting him back and forth, and I told him, hey, just let it come to you. It'll happen. Just let the game come to you. It'll happen.
Le'Veon Bell's pretty good at that.
He's very good at that. You see, he's the same kind of runner. He kind of waits, and then hits the hole.
Right.
Zeke does the same thing. I told him, just let the game come to you, and it'll start happening. And as you watch it, that's what he's doing now. But you know what's giving him that opportunity?
What?
The offensive line is stalemating the defensive line at the line of scrimmage. If you got penetration in the backfield, the play is over. But I mean, you can wait because the offensive line is giving you time to pick and choose your holes.
You know, we were talking about offensive lines, and I have this sort of theory that you live in Los Angeles and you work. You're obviously commenting a lot on the Rams. And my takeaway on the L.A. Rams and Jared Goff is they've drafted 10 offensive linemen in 4 years. None are great. Is it possible, like with the Rams, that staff, that organization isn't good with offensive players?
Well, Jeff Fisher's a defensive guy. And if you notice, the defense is solid, very good.
Every year.
Every year they're solid. So most definitely, and you have to put something to that. But also you have to look at I call them the suits, the guys up top that are letting these things happen. Like, people say that Jared Goff, that was Fisher's guy. Me personally, I don't believe that. He's a defensive guy. I don't think Fisher would trade away his whole team, for one player. And I say that because if that's the case, the Rams are one player away. If you look at their team, what would we supposedly? We were quarterback away. We're not a quarterback away. We're receivers away. We're offensive linemen away. I mean, we don't know what Jared Goff can do because he hasn't played in the regular season. So
you think Jeff Fisher's hand, Eric, was forced a little?
I believe his hand was forced. Yeah, I don't think, I mean, when it was all said and done, when they did it, he had to say, this is my guy. We're going to say, no, this is not the guy I want.
Right.
Of course he had to say, this is my guy. I mean, you have to.
Eric Dickerson, one of the all-time great NFL players, period, Hall of Famer, multiple Pro Bowlers, Offensive Player of the Year. I was talking about this with the Steelers. Like Mike Tomlin, he won a Super Bowl, got to 2, so he's not incompetent. But I find Pittsburgh to be wildly inconsistent. Not New England, not Seattle, not Kansas City. I think a good business, if you go to Starbucks, you get the same coffee, whether you're in downtown L.A. or Beijing. That's a good business. When you look, go back to your career. Did you play with locker rooms that were disciplined and undisciplined? Does it shift year to year?
Oh, most definitely. You have both. It's like, I'll say this much, with the Rams, that was a disciplined locker room because we had a lot of veteran players. We
Jackie Slater.
Dennis Hara. I mean, we had a lot of guys, we had David Hill. We had a lot of guys that had been there for years. Grown men. I mean, my offensive line had been together 6.5 years when I got there. So we had a lot of Jack Youngblood. I mean, I was a big Jack Youngblood fan. So we had a veteran locker room. The nonsense wasn't going to happen. When I went to the Colts, we had a pretty much kind of a veteran team a little bit, but when we traded for Jeff George. We got rid of a lot of veteran players
to pay for him. And now we got a young locker room, and it showed. It showed. How?
You know, one way I can say it showed. It was really disturbing to me is when we had one of those seasons we were losing, and the players say, "Man, I'm just getting my check." I'm like, have some pride. Have some pride. You know, you just don't want to go out and take these butt kickings every week with no pride involved in it. You know, and that was the frustrating thing. You know, you didn't have anyone that would stand up and say, "Hey, man, this team, this is where we're going. You know, we're not here, we're going here." I mean, it was just so frustrating. I mean, because I was a Steeler fan too. Believe it or not, I was a Steeler fan. You know why? Because they used to beat the Cowboys, so I became a Steeler fan. I look at the Steelers as a team that's always had a solid foundation.
Yes.
A real solid foundation. You knew what they were. If defense is going to hit you in the mouth, you know, they're going to play tough, and they're going to get in your face. They're going to get in each other's face if they're not playing hard and they're not playing right. And right now, I don't think that's happening with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they've had some injuries, but, you know, it is what it is. That's football. Football is a sport that you're going to get hit and you're going to get hurt.
When you watched Seattle, New England last night, and you know, I said I started my show saying I love the Steelers Cowboys. It was a great TV product. But when I was watching that game last night, the chess match between Belichick and Pete. I watched the Super Bowl and I watched that game. Very few guys can go up against Belichick and play with him, and you can sense half to half, possession to possession. Pete Carroll's very different. Now, Eric, in your career, I want you to go back to your coaches. Pete's chewing gum 100 miles an hour. He looks like a grad assistant. He's high-fiving his players. He doesn't really act and look like when he was at USC.
Like NFL coach.
He's 60 going on 24. When you watch Pete, what do you see? What's his magic?
It's funny you say that. I think it was a couple of weeks ago they won a game. I forgot which game it was. And Pete was they were going in at halftime, and he was hugging the players and grabbing the players. And I'm like, see, that's why they love him. He's like one of us. He's like one of the players. Even though he's the head coach, he can relate to us. You know, come on, guys, come on. You know, it's halftime. We're leading. Come on. That's the kind of coach he is. And one thing about Seattle is that when I look at their football, they're a talented football team too.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a team that has a little bit of talent. So when you play a team like the New England Patriots, and if you got just as much talent, I think they have more talent.
So do I.
It's no problem. It's like, hey, we're just as talented as you, if not even more. So with having a coach that can relate to his players, the players love, they're going to play that much harder for the coach. Because you know why? You don't want to let your coach down.
So much fun. Before we let you go, Eric Dickerson, so you played in the league for a long time, and you probably took your share of Toradol shots or whatever they call them to play. But, you were a guy, you were a workhorse. And some people have said Ezekiel Elliott, they're just running him too much. So I want you to go back to your career. Could I make the argument that they're leaning on Ezekiel Elliott? But now, Eric, the weather gets cold. It gets a little harder to wake up in the morning. You know what it's like. Could I make the argument the Cowboys are built for the regular season? They're going to wear that young kid out later.
You know, yes and no. I guarantee if you ask Zeke, he'd want to play every play. He wants to get the ball as much as you can. I did too. Only thing is that I can say when it got to week 11 and 12, for me, I came in at 220, 225.
That was camp weight.
That was camp weight. During the season, I stayed at that weight pretty much. When I got to week 11, because I was not used to basically a 20-game season, preseason and regular season, I dropped my weight to 212. I was tired. I'm like, I am so beat up. I couldn't wait for the season to end so I could kind of get recharged. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to him because they seem to do a good job of rotating him out.
Okay.
But
it is different,
It is different. It is different playing the 12-game season, a 13-game season in college opposed to really a 16-game regular season. Then you got, possibly 3 to 4 games in the playoffs. It's way different. I feel like they're doing a good job with him. I mean, the thing is because he doesn't take the big shots, those big shots. They have a great offensive line.
Yeah, but you didn't take a ton, did you?
Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we ran the ball 30, 35 times a game.
God.
With 21 times, that's good. 30, 35 times a game.
So by week 11, 12, you were a different back.
I was a different back. I was beat up. But the second year, the year I ran for 2,000 yards, I said, I'm going to be more prepared. I'm going to get my body in better shape. And I was ready for that 16-game season. There was no problem. So it really just depends on the player, and it depends on the injuries you have. If you have a shoulder injury, rib injury, it's hard to run, with that authority that you want to run with. If you have a knee injury, for sure you can't cut. So you try to stay away from the little nagging injuries.
Great seeing you, man.
Hey, good seeing you, man. Great show too.
Oh, thank you so much. I cannot wait to have you on again.
I need to have somebody sitting in.
Hi.
Hey, sitting next to me.
Next time we'll come sit next to you.
Stick around on FS1. Skip and Shannon. We're not going to commercial. Blown away by the stunning 8-1 start by the Dallas Cowboys. The Thanksgiving countdown is about to kick into panic mode. 1-800-Flowers.com bouquet. Right now, 24 multicolored roses, only $24. 1-800-Flowers.com, 1-800-Flowers.com. Click on the code HERD. Good to have you in on a Monday. Christine Leahy joining us. Top of the hour, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. Mike Pereira will join us on the pass interference or no pass interference call for 5 minutes. He's got a very interesting take on the psychology of an official late in games. I want you to tune to that. So, I'm watching yesterday. And it was a really good weekend of college football. I saw the polls today in college football. They're just ridiculous. They got USC like 15th. Really? Think there's 14 teams in America that can beat USC? All these pollsters have no courage. They get paralyzed by win-loss records. It just cracks me up. So the AP top 15 through week 11, and here's where they have it right now. They've got USC at 15. They just manhandled Washington, who's at 7. But this is why I just can't pay too much attention to the polls. They came in with a new staff. They got off to a 1-3 start, and people buried them. But I'll tell you what, outside of Alabama, and I don't think anybody can play with Alabama. Ohio State's probably the closest, but nobody's beaten Alabama. I'd put USC up against anybody. They have physically pushed Colorado and Washington in the Pac-12 all over the field. If it wasn't for one of their corners slipping, I don't think Washington would have scored a touchdown. They just were bigger, faster, stronger, but they're going to be 15th. I've said this, that game was not about Washington. The press thought it was about Washington, but the traditional power that gets 5-star recruits is USC. That game was about USC. That was about USC. USC fans, since Pete Carroll left, have been living in a chaos tunnel. Now it ends. Now they know this coaching staff can win big games, not only against good teams, but on the road and against really, really good coaches. Because when you watch that game, it's the first game in 3 or 4 years where you felt the Trojans were absolutely all buttoned up. Special teams, defense. I don't love their offensive coaching right now. I think Sam Darnold's spectacular at quarterback. For the record, all of this has changed since they put him in at quarterback. The coaches haven't changed. They put one quarterback in. What do you know? Remember when Alabama played USC? The first quarterback they started with couldn't move the ball. The second guy who's been starting since, they blew USC out. In college football, one quarterback can change everything. As good as Cam is, and he won a national title at Auburn, Cam's not winning big time in the NFL. He had a huge winning streak last year. You take that away, he's sub 500. In college, if you have a great quarterback, he can be a game changer. Sam Darnold is fantastic. He makes everybody at USC look better. That said, though, they looked like the game plan, be physical, they showed poise, real defense and special teams. There you go, USC. You got your guy. Still don't love their offensive coordination during a game. I don't think they're overly layered or clever, but that game was a referendum on this staff now capable of beating good teams, well-coached teams in their conference, even on the road. That's a good feeling, and you haven't had that in a long time at USC. My other takeaway, when I was watching New England and Seattle last night, that the only player in my adult life that I can even compare to Russell Wilson is Steve Young. One right-handed, one left-handed. But they're very similar. High IQ, though they scramble, very disciplined, high completion rate, beautiful touchdown field, also accurate within 15 yards. I'm sitting there watching how demoralizing must it be to face Russell Wilson. But here's what's interesting. If you go back to his college days, this is what's remarkable. That Deshaun Watson, Clemson, is going to be the number one pick in the draft. He's the quarterback out of Clemson. He's got 27 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Go back in Wikipedia, Russell Wilson's last year in college at Wisconsin. He had 40 touchdowns. He completed 73% of his throws. He had over 3,500 total yards. And every team passed on him 3 times, most 4. That if Russell Wilson would have simply been 2 inches taller, could have been the number 1, 2, or 3 pick. But there's never been a prototype for a 5'11 and a half guy who plays like that. And in the NFL, everybody's looking for a prototype. But you know what? There was no Oprah before Oprah. There was no Howard Stern before Howard Stern. And that Russell Wilson, I'm sitting there watching last night, you can't game plan for that. I've told the story multiple years where I saw his first college game, Saturday afternoon, in my house in West Hartford, Connecticut. I got on my phone and I text Kirk Herbstreit, who the hell's Russell Wilson? And the announcer's like, he's the shortstop. He's the quarterback. I don't even remember who they played. But I don't think I've ever texted Herbstreit since. It was like 7 years ago. I'm like, who is this guy? You're watching last night, as dangerous a quarterback. Steve Young's the only guy I can even compare him to. God, it's just incredible. Dropped to the third round. Go look at his college stats. His college stats are obscene. But because he wasn't 6'2 and a half, he's just like 5'11 or 6 feet, everybody passes on him. Sometimes there's not a prototype. Steve Jobs didn't have a prototype. Sometimes there's not a prototype. There isn't. Where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. Hour 2 just ahead. We are packed. It's the Herd. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy joining me. We are just starting today. Every Monday at this time, I look over my predictions from the last week, my bold statements, and I make mistakes, and we need to address them. And so let's not waste any time, John Goulet. Roll the tape.
Where Colin was right?
Blazing 5. We're having a really good year. A really, really good year. Blazing 5, another winning record. We called Tennessee over Green Bay. We called Miami over San Diego. We called Denver over New Orleans. And Dallas, Pittsburgh, depending on the minute you watched, we had it, we lost it, we had it, we lost it. Blazing 5, 3-2, about a 60% clip this year. It's been really, really strong, and we really have only been on the wrong side of about 4 or 5 games the entire season. Really on the wrong side.
Where Colin was wrong.
A couple of weeks ago, I said, I'm taking Carolina as my bounce-back team for the second half of the season. Listen, can we stop making excuses for Cam Newton? They've got plenty of talent. Greg Olson's a great tight end. Kelvin Benjamin's a great player at wide receiver. Funchess can play. Jonathan Stewart, their O-line's fine. He is so inconsistent. 23 of 38? Be more accurate. I'm telling you, I watch these young quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Marcus Mariota, and Derek Carr. I don't get the moodiness of Cam and the inconsistency of Cam. Once again, sometimes I fall in love with the optics. Big, strong Cam. I love their front 7 defensively. But they're just too inconsistent. And Cam, sorry, they're just young quarterbacks I like more now.
Where Colin was right?
This is the last time I'll go to this one, but I'm going to say it one more time. Ezekiel Elliott, I was strongly, when everybody else said it was nuts, I said draft a running back. My belief, my methodology in the draft is just draft productive players. Draft a kicker if you think he's going to be with you for 14 years. Draft a running back. Draft a quarterback. Just draft productive players. Coaches don't get fired when they've got a roster full of productive players. They get fired all the time when they have a roster of value. You know who you shouldn't draft? Punters. They're not productive. Don't draft, in most cases, Cowboys an exception, don't draft a guard, the most unathletic offensive line position. But if a guy's productive and you can pencil him into your lineup and you see him as a 1,000-yard performer, then that's a first-round player to me.
Where Colin was wrong.
Before the season started, Alabama didn't have a quarterback. And had key losses. And I said, I think they're going to be fifth. I think they're going to get knocked out of the Final Four in college football. They're so much better than everybody else, it's not even close. They've won 22 of 23. That's in the SEC. And in most instances, like this weekend against Mississippi State, the game's over 5 minutes in. I mean, it's over 5 minutes in. They are well coached. They're smart. They're physical. And I'll say this with Lane Kiffin. They're creative offensively. They give you a ton of different looks. They're number one by a long shot.
Where Colin was right.
Brock Osweiler of the Houston Texans is as cruddy as I predicted. He's tall, he's jittery, he's unathletic, and the 2 or 3 times I've seen him interviewed, I don't love his personality. He gets defensive. This guy's got the third worst completion percentage in the NFL, the second worst passer rating, second worst passing yards per game, and the worst yard per attempt. And he's got like guys that can get down the field. It's not like they don't have any weapons. He's got a couple of guys on the perimeter that can really play. He is not a franchise quarterback.
Where Colin was wrong.
Boy, did I whiff on the top of the NFC. I went back and looked at my predictions this morning for the top of the NFC. I had Packers 1, Panthers 2, and Cardinals 3. I even butchered the bottom of the conference where I thought the Lions and the Eagles would be the pits, and they're both really compelling and really interesting and have a shot at the playoff. I was pretty good in the AFC. But you know what? Maybe next year I'll just pick the AFC. I won't even pick the NFC because I whiffed, especially at the top and bottom.
Where Colin was right.
Now, this is a two-parter. I said USC should have hired Clay Helton. I said he's stable. He's a grown-up. There's too much chaos. His dad was an NFL coach, respected. Clay Helton knows the program. He knows personnel. He knows Southern California. And it does look like now they've got it together.
Where Colin was wrong.
But after 3 weeks, I said fire him. I said they're humiliating themselves. At one time, they had 8 men on the field. Their special teams were a disaster. They were wasting their timeouts in the first quarter. They had blowout losses. Clay Helton didn't even know exactly where to stand on the sidelines. So that's kind of a little of both there.
Where Colin was right.
This is my favorite. I did my homework on this one. Remember I said about 6 months ago? I said Lorenzo Romar at Washington is the worst game coach in college basketball and maybe the best recruiter not named John Calipari. So they have, once again, the presumptive number 1 pick in the NBA draft is a kid named, Markelle Fultz? So he had Markelle Fultz. He's going to be the number 1 pick. He had 30 points yesterday. Man, Lorenzo can recruit. And they lost to Yale. He can't coach. And Yale was missing their best player. He probably had like a midterm or something. The guy, honestly, he's Calipari. But X's and O's, nobody gets less out of NBA players than Washington. And it's not like their NBA players kind of drift and sit on the bench. They put guys in the NBA like Terrence Jones, Isaiah Thomas. You're like, oh, that guy can play. Brandon Roy, that guy can play. That guy's like an all-star. The Herd discover why millions of men like me, women too, have joined Dollar Shave Club. DollarShaveClub.com. A third of the price. If you've never joined, a 1-month trial, razors are free. DollarShaveClub.com. All right, let's bring on the former vice president of officiating in the NFL, Mike Pereira. Bring him to our show. Okay, we've got... You're very well. He's the Fox NFL rules analyst. Other networks have tried and failed in their duplication. Much like Russell Wilson, there is only one Mike Pereira.
I'm taller than 5'11".
You are.
But, yes.
Here we go. Gronk. Good call, bad call, roll the tape, guys. You like it or not?
In my opinion, at least through this portion of the year, call of the year, the no call of the year. Very difficult call to make. I've always said it's often harder not to call a foul than it is to call a foul. And to me, in this one, we know Gronk. Gronk's a big tight end. He likes to collision, defensive back.
Sure.
Gets called for a lot of offensive pass interference calls. To me, who initiates the contact first? Cam Chancellor? Gronk?
I couldn't
it's
tell.
really iffy. And to me, it's the absolute perfect no call. I mean, you cannot tell. It's disputable, and a lot of people have their opinions on it, certainly one way and the other. Perfect example to me of why you don't make that call, because it's not clear one way or the other at all.
Mike, you've been in that spot. There is a psychology. Most officials I've talked to, boxing officials, NBA officials. I was talking to an NBA official in an airport about a year ago. He goes, the later in a series it gets, we want to disappear into the tile. So take me to that play last night. The official on Gronk's side, what's he going through?
I'll tell you, his heart is in his throat. I mean, you know when the game is on the line. Third quarter, you're cruising on. It's not an issue. Even opening kickoff, it's not necessarily an issue. But you go in that last series where the game is on the line, and I'm telling you, your nerves just pile on. And you look at everything that happens. They came out and kind of set in a formation, and then they shifted, and Gronk goes to the outside, and that side judge, who's going to be responsible because he's got Gronk.
And he knows it.
His guy. He knows it, and he's probably 80% sure that the ball's going to come to Gronk. So I got news for you. His heart rate is going through the moon, and now he's trying to go through his routine. You got to count the defense. You got to do. Me, when I was in the office, quite frankly, I'd look at the formation, and I knew who was where in the officiating standpoint, and I would hope that it was a 20-year guy that was going to have to cover Gronk and not a first- or second-year guy.
Mike, is there an understanding, perhaps even unspoken, on plays like that? And I've said this in the NBA. If the game is tied, it's Game 7, there's 20 seconds left, and you drive to the basket, they're going to let you have to have an arm severed. Is there an understanding in officials on a last play of the game that you would prefer no call?
Well, you would prefer not to be the story. That's what you prefer not to be. To me, this is not a foul in the first quarter, not a foul in the last play of the game. And whoever is teaching a philosophy, and it would have been me when I was in there running the department, I would never say to an official, hey, let them play in the fourth quarter. Let them play at the end of the game, because then you have a different standard of officiating. You're not being fair to the players. You're not being fair to the coach. You're not even being fair to your own officials by asking them to call things differently at the end. So I always said be consistent, and I think that's all you can ask for.
Now, I said a week ago I thought Seattle was the toughest team in the NFL to officiate because officials don't want to sit there and throw flags. They hear the fans. Nobody wants to watch 28 flags. And that Pete Carroll, maybe a little of Pete's genius, Jerry Sloan, coach of the Utah Jazz, kind of felt this. We're going to be physical. So physical that we move the psychology of the game. And over time, refs are just going to, because they're human, allow a little more. Is that possible?
Back in my days, it was the Dolphins. They'd play a lot of press coverage at the line of scrimmage, and so they press coverage challenges you, and that's the hard one for officials. And Seattle was very good at it because they'd press you off the line. First thing you think for, if you're the downfield official and you've got the wide receiver and you're in press coverage, you're thinking about first contact up to the face because you can't do that. Then they run side by side. Then there's going to be a break, a point in the route that you break to the side. Then is there a grab? Is there not? Seattle, I always felt really challenged that. And they were called for a lot of penalties because they played so aggressive. And when you get press coverage, man coverage versus zone coverage is such more easy to officiate than it is the press. But Seattle's very good at it.
Is it harder to officiate at the goal line just because of your body and the clutter?
It's harder because it's condensed.
So there's just
it's
more,
so condensed.
more people, smaller.
Sure. And you're still running crossing routes and doing those types of things. You know, we have a thing, you would never hear this, but when you officiate, and when it comes to the passing game, you officiate man, zone, ball. So what that means when you're out in open field, each official has a man. All eligible receivers are covered. Man, you get him off the line. Zone, when he comes into your zone, you switch and take who's ever in the zone. 3, when the ball goes in the air, you take ball. When you get inside the 10-yard line, inside the 5, you really have to play man all the way. And it presents some real challenges when you get close to the goal line.
Well, I thought the games were officiated well yesterday. I always think there's too many flags, but I wouldn't have called a pass interference on that, and I was okay with it. Mike Pereira, the best-dressed former official in league history. And I don't know what that's worth, but it's worth something at Fox.
I don't think much. But they're not my clothes, so I don't,
Whose are they?
I guess you could wear them if you like. They're Foxes.
Good seeing you, bud.
Yeah.
Coming up next. Oh, yeah. Every bit as good as you thought. The Herd. All sorts of stuff. You see behind me the octagon. Let me just go off for a couple of minutes on this whole Conor McGregor thing. Listen, if you watch professional wrestling and you watch boxing now compared to UFC, it's not even close. It's not even close. Wrestling looks so pathetic when they have to pull out The Undertaker now. They've run out of stars. John Cena, when does he fight or fake wrestle? And then boxing's pulling out Manny Pacquiao. The reality is the UFC creates names, even retirements. Miesha Tate retires this weekend. That's a story. Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor. So he goes to Madison Square Garden. It sets an all-time Madison Square Garden gate record, as predicted. It was a wild scene. Hell, Madison Square Garden, this fight didn't start till 1 in the morning. 1 in the morning. They did that for Europe because he's from Dublin. 1 in the morning. It didn't start till. Crowd was going crazy. And whereas wrestling's fake and boxing is dead, the energy this sport creates is ridiculous. And I said this, Conor McGregor won the fight. His weigh-ins and his post-fight interviews are better than boxing matches. Here he is after he beat Alvarez.
Where the is my second belt? I've already got this one. $4.2 billion this company was sold for. Where's that second belt? Go backstage and grab the belt somewhere.
Was there anything at all surprising about it to you?
Not one bit. If you come in any way equal to me, I'm going to rip your whole head off, and that's it. I tell her every time. Eddie's a solid competitor. Eddie's a warrior. But he shouldn't have been in here with me, and that's just the truth of it. I've spent a lot of time, Joe, slating everybody in the company. Backstage, I'm starting fights off everybody. I've ridiculed everyone on the roster. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the he wants. This is what I dreamed into reality. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. God bless.
Conor McGregor, congratulations. Yes. It's been an honor calling your fight, sir. Yes, Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
He's out of his mind.
He's a showman. Okay, the difference between a wrestling showman and Conor McGregor, it's real. Guys get punched. And I think you can tell a lot about this sport by what it's doing to its rivals. Making them look terribly small. Sucking the oxygen out of the room of boxing and wrestling. The other story is Jerry Jones basically says Tony Romo, Ian Rappaport will join us top of next hour, broke the story. Tony Romo is willing to be the Dak Prescott backup. And this is what you got to do. Listen, I've never seen anything like this. Again, this is a precedent. I've never seen anything where a fourth-round player comes into the NFL, a fourth-rounder, and takes the league over. Now, do I think he's as good as Russell Wilson? No. Do I think he's as good as Tom Brady? No. I don't think he's as good as Marcus Mariota or Derek Carr. I think Dallas's offensive line is a monster. It is an avalanche. There are massive holes. I mean, he rarely gets pressured, but he's done a very good job. He's won at Green Bay. He's won at Pittsburgh. He's won at Washington. He beat rival Philadelphia. He's 5-0 on the road. I've never seen a story like this with a fourth-round guy. Russell Wilson wasn't this at ease as a rookie. Tom Brady didn't play his first year. So what you're seeing now is history. So every Cowboy fan's an expert this morning. Cowboy fans, you thought the Cowboys were great the last 10 years, and they stunk, most of them. This is unheard of. I've never seen it in all the years I've been watching the NFL where a fourth-round player takes over the league is the biggest story. That game yesterday, Pittsburgh and Dallas, was the highest-rated NFL game on any network all year long. It was on Fox, and the call was great and the fun was great. But sometimes it's history. And you know something? The really good quarterbacks, like we talked about this earlier, what makes a great company, Starbucks is good in Boise and it's good in Baltimore. It's the same coffee. It's in the airport or in your neighborhood. It's the same quality. Dak Prescott is the same quarterback home or away. That's what's really impressive. At Green Bay, at Pittsburgh, home, same quarterback. Now, every quarterback's a little more comfortable at home. But when I watch him, I get the same tempo. I get the same confidence. I get the same poise, home or away. Jason Witten talked about that.
The bigger the stage gets, the more expectations begin to grow from within the organization, outside. They kind of embrace that, and that's a great sign to young players. Just can't say enough about how they're playing right now and what they're doing for our football team.
40 seconds is a lot of time, especially with 3 timeouts, and that's really all I was thinking about, just saying over and over. We practice this every Thursday. 40 seconds and 3 timeouts. I can attack anywhere in the middle, anywhere in the field. Coaches are going to call the timeouts the way we need them, and let's go do it.
Look at that bow tie. Look at that. Goulet, you got to be proud of that.
The bow tie or him?
You finally got your act together. This team's finally organized, home or away. Hey, when you really need to be there, you need an Interstate car battery. It's the car battery auto techs prefer, outrageously dependable. Interstate batteries, go to interstatebatteries.com. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Brian Scalabrine, former Celtics player and now analyst for the Celtics, has started quite the rumor today. And the Warriors are denying this. From what I know about the Celtics, they're denying this as well, but I think it's an interesting thing to bring up. He's suggesting a potential trade that he said he read somewhere and that there's something to it, is that the Celtics would give up Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, and their 2017 Nets pick in exchange for Klay Thompson. And then the Warriors would potentially flip that 2017 pick for a big man. And also, coincidentally, right now, there are a lot of trade rumors about DeMarcus Cousins and that he is likely to be traded in the next couple of months.
I totally buy that.
Which part? There's 2 parts.
Listen, if Boston wants to win with LeBron in the East, Isaiah Thomas, Al Horford, and Klay Thompson it can at least be competitive. Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford and a bunch of B-C players have no shot.
And at the same time, for the Warriors,
it's great.
It's not great because if you get rid of Klay Thompson, you kind of lose the identity of the team.
Your
However,
bench gets significant.
Your bench gets better and your defense gets better because Avery Bradley is a pain in the butt on defense.
I think that works. I think it works perfectly. You're not going to get past LeBron with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford.
No, but also for the Warriors, they might have some trouble with the Cavs as well if they don't strengthen on defense. They also need a big man too, though, and I know that's what Goulet is going to say. Who's going to want a big man for the trade?
Celtics, it's great. Why would Bradley's good on defense. Klay was second or third team all defense last year. His defense isn't a problem. How does trading for 2 guys who can't score and a first round pick nobody wants make them better?
Scoring's not their issue right now. Defense is, and they do need a big guy. So that's kind of the wrinkle to it. They would have to be able to flip that pick for
Colin,
a very
the Celtics
good big
taught
man.
us last year nobody wants their picks.
But
those aren't worth anything.
First of all, if you have Steph, Durant, and Draymond, you got 3 of the top 15 players in the league. Okay, what you need is depth and toughness.
And Jay Crowder and Avery Bradley give you that. They're a pain to deal with, those 2.
I'm reporting this is going to happen.
I think it's completely...
I just did. I just broke news. I don't have any sources. I'm reporting this is going to happen.
I've dug into this, and I really don't think it's going to happen, although I would kind of like it. I think it'd be interesting for both teams. But Brian Scalabrine creating lots of problems today for the NBA media. Also, we talked about the Conor McGregor fight, but the Miesha Tate fight against Raquel Pennington had a very interesting ending. So Miesha Tate beat Holly Holm. It was kind of the win of her career, and then she lost to Amanda Nunes, and then she lost again on Saturday. And right after the fight in her interview, she announced that she was going to retire, which was kind of a shock to everybody. But I thought about this, and she was here last week, and I think that her demeanor was very different. I think usually she seemed like she had a lot of fight in her. And not that she didn't, but she was more kind of subdued. But she was talking about looking forward to potentially fighting Ronda Rousey. So I was shocked to hear that she felt like she was going to retire. But it seems like she just knew maybe her time was up. But I thought it was so classy, the way that she did it.
Yeah.
And Raquel Pennington was kind of her student back in the day. So she kissed her forehead and congratulated her. I thought it was really cool. But were you surprised?
Not really. I'm not really. This is rough. People think football's rough. That's rough. You get punched in the face. You can get out and you got $5 million in the bank. You have a life.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are questioning maybe she just said it in the heat of the moment, and once she thinks about it a little more, she'll take it back. But I don't know. I've just kind of noticed something a little different about her recently. And finally, the Redskins won this weekend, and Kirk Cousins is known for celebrating things by doing this.
You like that? You like that?
Now he has a new celebration that looks like this.
Ooh-wee! Ooh-wee!
Now, Colin, I know you don't like any kind of celebration, but if you had to choose, which one would you pick?
Once you get in the tunnel, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. Seriously, once the game's over,
you have to do it hidden. You can't celebrate publicly?
No, I don't like that.
Come on.
No public celebration. I don't like public affection. I don't like public celebration.
Did you see the nap? The guy took a nap in the end zone and got a penalty for taking a nap. Like, that's excessive celebration now?
Time and place for everything. Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Former general manager, vice player, personnel director, special assistant to the Patriots, Mike Lombardi, joins us here on a Monday. We bring him on the 10:30 Pacific, 1:30 Eastern. Let's start with the Seahawks. Wow, short week.
Yeah.
They played more downs defensively than any team in the league. They came out and were sharp as a tack. What do you make of them?
I've been saying this all year. They're the most mentally tough team that you'll ever play. They relish in the situations that present themselves. 5 quarters against Arizona, no problem. We'll just keep playing. Ball at the 9-yard line, 1st and goal for the Buffalo Bills on Monday night, no problem. We'll just keep playing. 1st and goal on the road in New England. We'll just keep playing. I think it's a mindset, and I think what they do. There's a great saying by Marcus Aurelius, and he says the secret to all victory lies in the organization of the non-obvious. Well, the Seattle Seahawks are organized in the non-obvious. You can't see mental toughness. Fans can't see mental toughness. Fans can't see how much a team relishes being in a competitive situation. That's not obvious to fans. They're great at it.
When you were with Bill, what did he think of Pete Carroll?
Great respect for Pete. I mean, look, Pete is what Pete has been doing. Pete redefined himself after he got fired.
That's right.
Read the John Wooden book again. But what Pete is what Bill is. They just do it differently. Pete believes in one system of defense. He's run it since 1985. I mean, we can change the names. We can go back and get the yearbook out in 1985 of the Minnesota Vikings and Joey Browner's Cam Chancellor. You can look at Michael Bennett is Chris Dolman, or you could just fill in all the blanks. They're all the same people, and that's why they're so good. They know who they are. They scout inside out, and he has a philosophy. It doesn't change. It's not whimsical. You talk about your Starbucks analogy. That's what makes great businesses, being consistent. But most importantly, it starts with knowing who you are, and Seattle knows who they are. Their organization knows who they are.
I believe, Mike Lombardi, that the key to defense, and really the key to football, I want my team to be comfortable and you to be uncomfortable.
Right.
New England's defense doesn't make you uncomfortable enough.
No, even when they force a negative play, they had 2nd and 17 early in the game, and they throw it out for 15 yards. The next thing you know, there's just, to me, what happens to New England, and this was really, and I know this is going to hurt you when I tell you this, but the reality here is this, is they've had forced 9 turnovers. 7 of them came in 2 games, 4 against Ryan Tannehill, 3 against the Houston Texans.
Otherwise, they don't do it.
Otherwise, they can't do it. And what does that tell you? Speed on defense is created by the fumbles you force. Your defensive line runs to the receiver who's caught the ball, smacks him, the ball comes out. The Patriots' speed on defense has been a problem all year. They're a big physical team with no closing speed. They can't create turnover. Last night, they weren't even close. Alex Collins dropped the ball, but that was the closest they were to a turnover. They didn't get their hand on another ball.
And Seattle could have caused 8 fumbles. And the one
all over the football.
To me, I watched Seattle's defense. You got to catch the ball and get down, or they'll strip it from you. Now, Russell Wilson is just his dexterity. He's smart. He's athletic. I mean, everybody in the league passed on him. His numbers at Wisconsin are absurd. Well, what do you make of him?
He gets benched for basically he has to go to Wisconsin because Mike Glennon becomes the quarterback at North Carolina State.
They benched him.
I think what you saw was great leadership. I think he and Dax are similar in this sense. They can lead men. They have great leadership ability, and it's not phony. People gravitate and follow him, and I think that's what he was at NC State. And he goes up to Wisconsin. He did the same thing. Last night, I thought he was absolutely in a zone. Then the Patriots defense had a lot to do with it. They didn't cover anybody. They didn't really put enough pressure on him. They never made him uncomfortable, as you said, and he played really well. He was the difference in the game. When you go back and analyze, we could talk about the call, but they couldn't control Russell Wilson. And the only area they were successful was in the red zone, or else at 31 points would have been 41.
Wow. All right. I called the Cowboys-Steelers a bit of a pillow fight. I don't love those defenses, but Dallas, I'm telling you, every week, Mike, I get the same performance.
Every week, yeah. And, look, I think the pillow fights in the Big 12 all the time, but I see where you're going. The Dallas defense, it was two defenses that were against each other. Rod Marinelli, Mike Tomlin, both on the same staff at Tampa. And I think what happened is Dallas understands who they are. The key to the game was all those 3rd and 1s that Zeke kept converting because the ball never went back. Like you kept saying, lead changes. Well, once you gave the ball back, and Mike Tomlin was calling plays at the end of the game, he realized once they scored with 45 seconds, it might have been too much time because he knows his defense wasn't good enough. Same thing had happened in New England. I think a lot of the play calling down in the red zone on the 1st and goal at the 2 was to make sure that Seattle didn't get the ball back. To keep their defense off the field. If you're watching the game, you're saying to yourself, look, I can't put my defense back on the field. At the end of the half, with a minute to go, they went right down the field. New England rushed 2 players, and they still moved the ball. So I think that's where Dallas's offense is complementary to their defense. They control on 3rd down, and they keep them off. They played 29 minutes last night. They gave up 400 yards passing to Big Ben. But the way they win is with their offense and controlling the pace.
Okay, so I said this earlier, is that the thing about great is it creates clarity. Like when you see, Karl Anthony Towns or a young Kobe Bryant or LeBron James, you're like, okay, that's great, and everything compares to it. So I see Derek Carr's energy, and I see Marcus Mariota's size and accuracy, and I see Dak Prescott's poise. And I'm like, those are franchise quarterbacks. Increasingly, Mike, I look at Cam. I get inconsistent. I get moody. I don't know week to week. And I'm tired of everybody saying Cam doesn't have any weapons. Funchess can play. Benjamin can play. Jonathan Stewart can play.
He's got 3 receivers that average over 15 yards a catch.
He's got plenty of good players. I'm moving away from, what is it with Cam?
I don't think he handles success very well. I think there's a temperament to handling success. The greatest reward for doing is the opportunity to do more, and I don't think he's really handled the opportunity to do more. I think he's kind of gotten there, and he doesn't realize that we're not even at the halfway point of this mountain climb. We've got a long way to go. And he needs to he has to act more mature and understand that now that you've won the MVP and the spotlight is on you, you've got to behave differently. You can't be the same player you once was. And it starts with him. I mean, your quarterback, what you just cited there is when you're in personnel and you draft a quarterback, Jeff Van Gundy has this great line about your best player must set the intolerance for anybody who gets in the way of winning. And that's what Dak does. There's nobody.
That's what Tim Duncan does.
That's what all those great players do, and that's what the quarterback does. That's what Cam's not doing, and that's where the problems start. And if you're Dave Gettleman and if you're Ron Rivera, you've got to really, hey, you are our guy. You're the guy that leads this team.
Sets the tone.
You've got to change this. You've got to set the intolerance for anything that gets in the way of winning. And I think that's been the biggest problem with Cam. Brady does it in New England. Russell Wilson does it in Seattle. There's no anything going on there. And I think Green Bay's problem is there is Aaron Rodgers is complaining. I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan, but there's a lot of dissension going on about the players that are on the field, and it's starting to manifest itself.
All right, let's finally, I've been on the Raiders. Denver's better than I thought. The Raiders are about what I thought they would be. That is an incredible division. It looks like San Diego's now falling off. What's going to happen with the AFC West?
I think it affects the North. I mean, Baltimore loses to Oakland, so let's just go this way: Denver, Kansas City, and Oakland. I think Kansas City wins the West. I could be wrong. But those three teams are going to make the playoffs. Unless they just collapse, they're going to make the playoffs one way or the other. There's three, so there's two wild cards coming from the West. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers this morning, you wake up, you're 4-5. You're one game behind Miami, and you lost to Miami for the wild card.
You have to win.
You have to win the North. If you're Baltimore and you're flying to Dallas, it's a must-win game. You've got to win. Cincinnati got to win tonight. You can't. The North has to be the champion from the North has to be the playoff team has to be the champion. It can't be a wild card.
No,
the West is too good.
And I'll tell you, just from the perspective of watching Denver, Kansas City, especially Kansas City and Oakland. Kansas City and Oakland look like playoff teams.
Denver has a way of finding a way to win. Look, their season is made by blocking an extra point. I mean, think about that. And New Orleans, think about New Orleans. They're 4-5 right now, and if they could just kick an extra point, they turned the ball over. They made a million mistakes, but they could have gotten that game into overtime against Denver. They're 5-4, and Atlanta's no lock to win the South all of a sudden. They go to Carolina. They blow an extra point. They can't get it done.
Yeah, that game was wild. Wow. Denver, New Orleans flipped in a minute 3 times yesterday. Denver had it, New Orleans had it, Denver had it.
It was really, truly, from college football to pro football, it was a great weekend. And the Atlanta-Philadelphia game was good, too, because Atlanta's defense, they hung in there, they played well. Philly just kind of fought their way through and showed that if you can rush inside against Atlanta, if you can pressure the pocket, if you have good tackles who can pass rush, Flexer Cox, Benny Logan inside, then you can affect Matt Ryan and his ability to get the ball down the field.
Good seeing you.
Thanks.
Mike Lombardi, The Herd. So last night I got the meat sweats because I ate so much meat. I started sweating like sirloin through my pores.
That's what happens when you eat a steak and a half.
Yeah, I just couldn't stop myself last night. I was going to stop chewing. I told you about 2 weeks ago I was done chewing in my life.
Right, and then you ate a steak and a half.
Yeah, so I started chewing again. So I had the weirdest thing happen. So I left the restaurant with my wife, my beautiful wife, and I came out, and a guy comes up to me, and he's walking by, and he goes, "Hey, do you know where this so-and-so place is?" And I said, "Yeah, it's about 4 blocks down on your left." He goes, you Colin Cowherd? And I said, yeah. "No, you're not." And I said, "Yeah, no, I am." No, you're not. And I said, "No, I am." No. And I said, all right. Well, it's nice to meet you. And then he goes, "You are." And I'm thinking, I kept telling you I was. And the minute you said I wasn't, it was very...
Was he sober?
I think he was mostly sober.
Okay. Were you?
No, I was completely sober.
Okay.
I had the meat sweats. I was just sweating sirloin. But he kept saying... No. And I kept saying, yes. And finally I said, no. And he's like, yes, you are. I hope he found his destination.
He didn't ask for a picture or anything?
No, that was, no, he didn't. Very confusing. It's just a very odd little moment. My wife looked at him and she's like, people don't believe you. And I'm like, yes, it's me. Really.
You should just say no. If anyone ever got...
Yeah, but then you'd be a jerk and people would think you're trying to avoid stuff. Start having great days by getting great night's sleep. Go... Casper Mattress, 100 nights at your home, risk-free. Don't like it? They'll come and get it. Take it out, free. Casper.com, code HERD. That'll get you $50 toward the purchase of your mattress. Terms and conditions apply. You know, Tony Romo said, apparently, Ian Rappaport, top of our next hour, plus Donald Penn of the Raiders. That guy is a bruiser. He's going to join us. I'm not sure if that couch can withstand that dude. That guy's like, what is that guy, like 6'6", 320? He is a big dude. He's going to be joining us. We had Derek Carr on Friday. Raiders had a bye week. Donald Penn's in studio. Ian Rappaport. Ian broke the story that basically the Cowboys, Tony Romo has said, I don't have to start. I'll back up. You know, this is one of these funny things. You want to be competitive. Like I've always defended LeBron James. People say, LeBron James won't take the big shot. Well, yeah, what LeBron could score 30, but LeBron, like Magic Johnson, is willing to let others succeed. That's like a real quality that if you have that quality and I say on the show all the time, celebrate other people's success. Like I was taught that. It's a real quality. Be happy for other people. Tony Romo's like, I'm not going to screw this up. I can still play in this league. Now, 4 weeks ago, I told you, I think he's going to end up with the Jets. I think Tony Romo is going to be a New York Jet. I already made a Warrior Celtic trade 20 minutes ago. I think Tony Romo is going to play for the Jets because Dak's going nowhere, and you can find backup quarterbacks. You're not going to pay Tony what you're paying him. I think in a very short time, Tony Romo is not going to be a Dallas Cowboy. But I think there's a real quality to Tony Romo. It also creates leadership and provides a glimpse of your leadership when you can say, I don't have to start. It's better for the team if I don't start. That's being a grown-up. And in this instance, Dak's rolling. And don't kid yourself. Cowboy fans think they're geniuses this morning. Don't kid yourself. Jerry Jones is surprised. Jason Garrett's surprised. Tony Romo's surprised. Everybody in the league is surprised by this. And I still think Russell Wilson and Tom Brady and Aaron and Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr are better quarterbacks than Dak Prescott. So much of his success is that line and that running game. But at this point, and I think Tony would win these games as well, at this point, Dak Prescott, don't screw with chemistry. The chemistry's good. He's earned it. He saved the season. They couldn't pick up first downs last year. I mean, they couldn't. The Cowboys couldn't pick up successive first downs last year. So that was a really nice throw as you're watching on FS1 to Dez Bryant. You know, I mean, it's a real quality if you can say, I don't have to be the star. And good for Tony Romo. I think Tony Romo realizes he was undrafted. The Cowboys gave him a shot. The Cowboys have made him generationally rich. And he's coming off an injury. And it's not the worst thing in the world if Tony Romo can get healthier and stronger and more fit and healthier and stronger and more fit. There's no rush back. If Dak gets hurt, he'll go in. If not, you sit and watch. It really is interesting, though. Tony Romo all these years. What if Dak Prescott wins the Super Bowl? You know, people are going to look at Romo and say, see, I told you so. See, we could have won this years ago. Stop. This offensive line, Ezekiel Elliott, this team right now. Remember, Tony, the last 19 games that Tony started and he was healthy, he was like either 15-4 or 14-5. Tony was really, really, really good. Let's not make this up that this team was in the couple years ago when Tony was upright, they won the division and they looked really, really good. And if it wasn't for a play at Green Bay, catch, no catch, they could have been in the NFC, championship game? So don't kid yourself. This offensive line is dictating a lot of this success. Hey, discover why millions of members like me love DollarShaveClub.com, a third of the price. And now if you go there, and if you've never been a member, first month of razors free. DollarShaveClub.com/Colin. DollarShaveClub.com/Colin. More NFL, Donald Penn of the Raiders. Plus, we go to New York next. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, live from Los Angeles at iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1, Christine Leahy. Reporting earlier, Klay Thompson Warriors to the Celtics, according to Brian Scalabrine, for a bunch of guys, and I'm totally buying it. That's going to happen in the next 12 hours.
Even though both sides are denying it, we both agree.
And Scalabrine had zero sources.
First of all, sources, schmorses.
He's backtracking,
People deny affairs all the time.
It seems like it would make sense, really, for
Makes
both
total
sides.
sense. If I'm Boston, I'd do it in a heartbeat. If I'm Golden State, I'd contemplate it.
Yeah. I would too. You got to see what you can get for that first round pick.
Sure. People deny stuff all the time. Our government denies stuff.
I think they play each other on Friday, too, so it could be really
I think the deal could be wrapped up by then.
Wrapped up?
I feel that strongly about it.
Huh. The three teams, all three teams involved?
Yeah. Who's the third team?
Depending on who would want to give up a big man.
Let's just throw Dallas in. Something will happen there. I'm making stuff
Why
up.
not?
So before we get to Ian Rappaport at Rap Sheet, NFL Network, he broke the story on Tony Romo's going to be the backup. I really like, not that it was an epiphany, but I'm watching yesterday, and I'm watching Dak Prescott. And, we also saw Jimmy Garoppolo. We've been worried in the NFL because it happened in the late 90s where Troy Aikman left and Steve Young left. And, a lot of the great quarterbacks almost simultaneously in a 2 and 3 year window left. And we've been saying is who's going to replace these guys? I got to tell you something. Dak Prescott, Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, we're fine. Andrew Luck, Russell Wilson, we're fine. The ratings right back up yesterday. Now, these games obviously were fantastic. Next weekend's ratings are not going to equal this weekend's because you had tremendous games. But I think we've got the young quarterbacks. And I was sitting there, and not that and we also have the Matt Ryans and the Aaron Rodgers, and, but I'm watching Cam Newton yesterday. Cam Newton, stop with the belly aching. You've got real receivers. They have 3 legitimate receivers, an elite tight end, and a very good running back. Cam Newton, I'm over it. And if there are 4 things that I am looking for my quarterback, accuracy. Dak Prescott's accurate. Derek Carr's accurate. Marcus Mariota's accurate. My number 1 thing, can you throw the ball down the field accurately? Okay, that's the number 1 thing. Number 2 is, are you a grown-up? Maturity. Accuracy, maturity. I mean, you can't be a goofball. Jamarcus Russell had talent, goofball. Ryan Leaf had talent, goofball. Johnny Manziel had talent, goofball. Because you got to be accurate, and you got to be a grown-up. Now, you also, are you coachable? That kind of goes into the grown-up slot. And then, do you give me a little mobility? I don't want you don't have to be Russell Wilson, but do you give me a little mobility? Do you give me some feet you can move? You can at least slide in the pocket. And I was sitting there thinking this morning, if you told me today, all things in, I could start my franchise with quarterbacks, I don't even know where I'd put Cam. I don't care that he's the reigning MVP. The whining, the coachability, the inconsistency, the marginal accuracy, been in this league 6 years. He's got 1 great winning streak, and that winning streak, you do realize, was tied with the Jets for the easiest schedule in the league during that winning streak. It was a lot of Houston Texans. It was a lot of junk teams, Jags, Texans, in his own division, which Jameis Winston was a rookie quarterback. So play the music, John Goulet. You give me a quarterback in this league, and I'll tell you, if today I'm a general manager and I know everything. Cam's been in the league 6 years. You give me a quarterback, and I'll tell you, do I choose Cam or this quarterback moving forward to run my franchise?
Okay, we'll start with last night. Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson. More mature Russell Wilson. I get the same performance when he's healthy every time.
Tom Brady?
Not close, Brady.
Okay. Andrew Luck?
Andrew Luck.
How about the guy you're big on today, Marcus Mariota?
The shocker of the league. Everybody's paying attention to Dak Prescott. Marcus Mariota, have you seen his red zone numbers? He's the best player in league history. It means he's had 27 touchdowns, no picks in the red zone. And Marcus Mariota, I don't get the fashionista stuff. That's the downside, I guess. But I don't get all the cool hats. But I'll tell you what, leadership qualities, that team, you watch the Titans, you know who that team's rallying around. I don't get any goofy comments. I don't get whining. The guy's accurate. He is mobile, and he's big. Mariota's a big kid.
What about Dak?
Dak Prescott. I've told you, his maturity blows me away. Cam's more talented. Dak's more mature.
Derek Carr?
Not even close. Derek Carr.
Okay, Jameis Winston.
Cam.
Ryan Tannehill.
Cam.
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
Stafford. What about Jimmy Garoppolo?
Garoppolo.
Whoa. Really?
Started 2 games.
Really?
All right. I got one for you. Aaron Rodgers.
What?
So where do you rank Cam?
That's my question.
15th?
That's my question. If I'm looking for accuracy, coachability, maturity, don't tell me Cam doesn't have weapons. Don't tell me that anymore. They've got very good receivers, very good back, very good tight end, average to above average offensive line. You don't know what you're getting week for week.
Carson Wentz.
Why are you looking
Now you're just...
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Here's the real test.
Is this Super Mario
Floppy
Brothers?
sleeves.
Bradford?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd take Cam.
Okay, so you're not totally crazy.
Hey, I'm willing to trade Klay Thompson. I'm out there today.
No, that makes sense.
I'm telling you, I am over Cam Newton. I'm over it. I know he's talented, but he's completing like 57% of his throws 6 years in. He holds the ball forever. Let it go. Now, Garoppolo, let me recant that. Rescind that. With Garoppolo, as long as I get Belichick with Garoppolo. Okay, if you give me Garoppolo with Belichick, I like what I saw there. All right, let's bring him in at Rap Sheet, NFL Network Insider. Actually, this Thursday, Saints at the Panthers, NFL Network and NBC. That's actually a huge game. Ian, let's start with this. Tony Romo, you broke the story. How do you did he lose his job, Ian? I mean, kind of explain the situation in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, that's one crazy thing about, hearing the Jerry Jones comments after the game last night. It was sort of, we've taken this week by week, and the Cowboys have made sure that it's been week by week. And so it's easy to lose what actually happened, and that's that Tony Romo officially lost his job. And this is really, we've spent months talking about what would happen when Romo got healthy, what would happen when Dak keep his job. Yes, Dak is keeping his job, and Tony Romo was replaced. So there's a couple things here. First of all, Romo is willing to be the backup, which is not a given. This is something that Peyton Manning was not thrilled about last year until he was able to come be the backup and then eventually took over for Brock. It's not something that every franchise quarterback would do, but Romo is going to be the backup. That's one thing. The other thing is it's not going to be for the season or for any period of time. It is going to be Dak is the starter until. So he needs to keep performing, needs to continue to be the best quarterback for the Cowboys. Otherwise, Romo's in uniform, and if they need to, they can just break the glass or whatever.
All right, so I watched the Rams. They won. So seriously, I don't think I've ever watched a game and could predict the score before it started, 9-6. There's a big talk here in Los Angeles. You got to play Goff, but my feeling is if you keep winning, you just go with Keenum to get Goff more reps. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I'm hearing sort of the same thing. And first of all, if Jared Goff was ready, if he needed to be out there, if he had to be on the field, you'd hear two things. You'd hear players, probably anonymously, but you'd hear players saying, we got to get this guy on the field. Really haven't heard that, which indicates to me this is a guy who's just probably not quite ready yet. I hear in 7-on-7, and he's arm talent's unbelievable, looks great, just doesn't seem to be ready yet, which is fine. Aaron Rodgers, if he would have had to play his first year, he wouldn't have been ready either, probably his second year also. It also, from what I understand, it doesn't seem like Jeff Fisher is poised to make a change today or this week. They won. Case Keenum didn't get him into trouble. Things were fine, a little ugly, but fine. I just don't sense that anything is imminent right now.
Listen, we know the Steelers are going to keep Tomlin, and we know, for the record, Pittsburgh has lost to Dallas and New England, and they're losing to some good teams, okay? And they did blow out Kansas City, so they have their moments. But you look at Green Bay right now, Ian. They're a really average team, and you don't fire quarterbacks in this league. Could I at least make the argument something's not right? McCarthy would get a job in 5 minutes, but maybe it is time to make a move there.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Now, first of all, I don't sense any movement to oust McCarthy in Green Bay. I would be stunned if he was replaced at the end of the year, barring some sort of epic collapse. I mean, it's important to understand what he's done. I think 7 playoff appearances in a row, including the year when they only had Rodgers for about half the season. He's a very good coach. The argument would be he's not reaching the players anymore. If you were going to make it,
sure,
we will know. This will all be very clear as the season plays out, because either they will respond or they won't. But I do think it's important to note just how many different things they've dealt with. Injuries to both running backs for a good portion of the year. Injuries to 3, standout defensive backs. Clay Matthews hasn't played in 3 games. He's out as well. They just had Bakhtiari get injured, their left tackle, yesterday. I mean, they've dealt with a lot of stuff. So they're not hitting on all cylinders. But I don't think this is going to be something that's going to have to be debated. I think the answer will be very clear. And my sense is that they're going to rebound, and in a not great division, probably going to be fine. But now, because of Sunday, everybody's watching them all the time.
Surprise team in the NFL for you?
I think the Dolphins. And it's interesting because, Adam Gase was a hot coaching candidate actually really 3 years in a row when he turned down the Browns and then didn't end up getting a job, and then he got the Dolphins job. And I always believed he would be a really good head coach, but you never know. And that's one thing we've learned is you never know who's going to be a good head coach. It seems he's going to be really good. And he's got a defensive coordinator in Vance Joseph who's probably going to be a head coach, I don't know, about maybe next year, maybe the year after. I mean, he has turned a bunch of misfits around. I mean, they are playing good football.
Hey, by the way, Tannehill,
San Diego.
Tannehill looked really good yesterday.
And he hasn't thrown an interception in, 5 weeks or so? A lot.
Yeah.
5 weeks, I think. They look like a very good team, but if you just judge from the collection of players, they're probably playing better than their players. I'll say that, which is always a sign of good coaching.
Finally, you wrote an article yesterday, Ian Rappaport, NFL Network Insider, on owners and marijuana. Talk about that.
Yeah, this was an interesting one for me. So really, over the last several months, every owner I came across or every decision maker, team president, whatever, I asked them their views on marijuana discipline. And I was curious, with the country clearly going in one direction, recreational marijuana use is legal in a couple more states from the recent election. Is the NFL going to go in the same direction? And, I was surprised that the majority of them believe that the punishment is too much. And some of them thought, maybe have no suspensions at all for marijuana. The majority thought, though, still they needed to make it tougher to get suspended for marijuana, which was interesting to me because, from what I was always told, the NFL will follow the country, and we know the direction the country is going. Now, this will be collectively bargained, so it'll be a negotiating issue, but it certainly seems from the owners I've talked with that they're open to decriminalizing marijuana in a way that I really hadn't thought they were.
Ian Rappaport, good talking to you, bud, at Rap Sheet. Good stuff, man.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think NFL players just want to go out there and get baked.
No.
And I think it's like these guys are hurt. They wake up Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and now they're playing Thursday games. I think there's a percentage of the country, and I'm not sure what part of the country, but there's probably more conservative social people that think, they're just out there just getting high and, wake and bake. And I think one thing we know about marijuana medically is that it helps chronic pain.
Yeah.
And the NFL's got a lot of guys in chronic pain.
And they don't want to get addicted to painkillers. I've talked to a ton of them who say that they want to smoke because they know that they are likely to get addicted to
it's legal now in California?
I did know that. I told you.
John, do you know that?
It got voted in. Be careful. It's not legal yet.
Are you sure?
I heard in West Hollywood it could be sooner than the rest of California.
I'm sure it would be. About like this afternoon in West Hollywood.
I definitely think people were celebrating the other night. I could smell it in the air.
Well, Californians were very mixed. They got Trump, they weren't happy, but they got pot, so they were happy. It was a weird day in the state of California. Donald Penn of the Raiders, I could go on an HGH roid diet for 10 years and not be half his size. Let's say one of the strongest guys in the league. Donald Penn's coming up. It's the Herd. 877-757-HERD. May take a call. I thought one of the stories yesterday, and I don't think it was a little thing, I thought it was a big thing, was for the second time in a month, Big Ben called out Mike Tomlin. And I noted this earlier. There is a difference between voting for a candidate and sticking that person's sign in your yard. There's a difference between voting and promoting. That's a big leap. A lot of people vote, they won't promote their candidate. Okay, it's one thing to not be happy with your coach. It is another to publicly criticize your coach for the second time. And again, Steelers yesterday made some key mistakes down the stretch. I've been on this for a couple of months. Mike Tomlin gets a pass because of the Super Bowl. We criticize Eli Manning. He's got 2 Super Bowls. Here's Big Ben after the loss to Dallas.
They're a great football team. Like I said, we undisciplined and not accountable. That's why they're one of the best in the business, and we're not right now.
Wow. That's the second time in a month he has questioned Mike Tomlin. And what Big Ben is telling you by doing that is we are better than our record. And for the record, the NFC is better than the AFC. And so the Steelers now have a losing record in the AFC. That's a problem. And they're not going to the playoffs unless they win their division. Because the Raiders and the Chiefs and the Broncos, you have a chance that you could get multiple wild card teams out of that division. Kansas City and Oakland are both making the playoffs. It could be Denver as well with that block kick yesterday. So Pittsburgh's got to win its division. The other story yesterday was I had no problem on the call at the end of the Seattle-New England game. I would not have called pass interference. I'm not exactly sure who started the physical play, who initiated contact. And my takeaway is when you play Seattle, they're a physical football team. And the tempo had been set in that game and the physicality had been set in that game. I don't have a problem with the officials not calling pass interference. I could make an argument that they both simultaneously initiate contact. And Cam Chancellor and Gronk, two of the most talented players. There's no other player like Gronk in the league, and there's no other player like Cam Chancellor. Here's what former head of officials Mike Pereira said on the Herd earlier today.
In my opinion, at least through this portion of the year, call of the year, the no call of the year. Very difficult call to make. I've always said it's often harder not to call a foul than it is to call a foul. And a lot of people have their opinions on it, certainly one way and the other. Perfect example to me of why you don't make that call, because it's not clear one way or the other at all.
I totally agree. Guys, if you're wondering whether your shirt's too long to wear untucked, it probably is. Go to untuckit.com. Code SPORTS for 15% off. They got stores in Chicago, New York, and now L.A. on Melrose Avenue. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
This is Justin. We haven't talked much about the Michigan-Iowa game, but Wilton Speight has a broken collarbone and will be out for the remainder of the regular season for Michigan. Could potentially be back for a bowl game, but he's projected to be out quite a while. And remember, he did break his collarbone in high school. So how much does this hurt Michigan?
Well, he's your kind of classic pocket quarterback. I don't think they matched up terribly well with Alabama anyway. Mm-hmm. But now it feels like, to me, Ohio State's going to
take it.
Penn State and Ohio State, you can't lose your quarterback at this point in the season. You could lose him in spring or fall camp, but it's not good.
Mike McCarthy was asked about the state of the Packers and if he's worried about them, plans on making any changes. Here's his response.
I'm not into shock and awe or torch the landscape type person. I'm a builder. I'm a developer. I've said that since the first day I arrived here. Let's just state the facts. I'm a highly successful NFL head coach. So, with that, I've never looked at the ride to this point as smooth and as whatever the word you used.
Did you hear him say, let's get it straight, I am a highly successful coach? Now,
well,
the Packers,
he is. Absolutely.
When you look at his record, but the Packers have allowed 30 points in 4 out of their last 5 games. That is the first time that's happened in Green Bay since 1953.
Listen, it's not that I would not. Mike McCarthy is a good coach.
Okay.
But here's my question. You're not going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. So what if they just don't? And I've been saying this for 3 years. I don't think they get along that well. They keep hiding it. But when you watch games and sidelines, look like they're buddies? Look like Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll?
Do you have to be
buddies? Yeah, it doesn't.
So what do you get rid of the coach?
I'm just saying is sometimes, look at Pat Riley, coach of the Lakers. He's like, you know what? My voice is being drowned out. That happens all the time. People say Nick Saban works in college better than the pros because by the time Nick wears you out, you graduate. Like some guys just wear you out. Maybe McCarthy and Aaron just don't click.
Okay. And finally, UFC cost, what do you think it cost at the gate, or the amount of money that they made just at the gate?
About $20 million.
$17.7 million.
So they made $18 million at the gate.
Yeah.
And are the pay-per-view numbers
They're
out?
They're not, but Dana White said that it is going to be better than Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor.
That'll probably be $1.5 million buys. They made a lot of money.
Huge, a lot of money. And the average ticket price was more than $1,000.
That started at 1:15 a.m., the McGregor fight.
Well, part of that, too, because a lot of the other fights kind of went the distance and didn't end in knockouts.
And also, it was in, he's from Dublin. So, they listen, a big part of the pay-per-view, it was in Ireland.
You know what's interesting, though? The gate for the Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather fight made $72 million. So it's still significantly more.
A huge boxing event in this country is going to absolutely outdraw UFC. But it's sort of like the NFL 15 years ago with baseball. Baseball still made more money 15, 20 years ago, but social currency. Boxing from a social currency standpoint, nobody talks boxing anymore, except diehard boxing gym guy.
Speaking of which, so Manny Pacquiao has been spotted around wearing a jacket, and on the inside it has a Floyd Mayweather face on it. So a lot of people think he's trying to really promote that fight happening again, and that's what they're going back to. It was a really boring fight. I don't think anyone wants to see that again, Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, but that's all they have really to fight against UFC.
Yeah. Christine, the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
All right, so 2 weeks ago, I got to roll you some tape. 2 weeks ago, Donald Penn is a Pro Bowl left tackle for the Raiders. Now, the Raiders' offensive line is not getting as much love as the Dallas Cowboys, but they have only allowed 11 sacks this year. That is the lowest total in the National Football League. So here was Donald Penn, Pro Bowl tackle, a couple of weeks ago against Tampa. Let's roll the tape.
They actually have gone unbalanced. Donald Penn's gone right. They bootleg Derek Carr, who lob it for a touchdown. Caught by Donald Penn. The former Tampa Bay Buccaneer comes back to Raymond James to score a touchdown.
That, I'm told, was the fourth offensive touchdown of Donald Penn's career, which is probably more than half the tight ends who have been drafted past the third round in the NFL over the last decade. So the Raiders' story, much like the Cowboys' story, so much of the Cowboys' story is offensive line, not just Ezekiel Elliott. So much of the Raiders' story, and I love Derek Carr, but it's about the guys, the horses up front blocking for Derek Carr. Let's bring him on. 10th NFL season, Pro Bowler, just re-signed for 2 years and a ton of dough. Look at Donald Penn. That is a man. Man, look at you. You just love pancaking people.
You know, as offensive lineman, you got to love that.
It just feels great. When you just knock a guy, just pow. That will never happen to me. How good does that feel?
It feels good, especially depending on who it is. And you know what? With the rules now, they're making it a little soft. You can't put no extra syrup on them at the end, you know? Oh. Because they could throw the flag. They're making it a little soft now.
You could put a little syrup on.
A lot of syrup back in the years. You know, my time calmed down a little bit, yeah.
When you first started, what could you do after you pancaked a guy?
Every time I pancaked somebody, I was hitting them again before they got up.
I'd love to hear that. I really love to hear that. So Derek Carr breaks into the league, and he's almost borders on hyper. I mean, Mr. Energy. When you first played with Derek Carr, did you think, Donald, he would be this good?
You know, the crazy thing was when he got there, you know, Matt Schaub was the starter. And, you know, I was going with the one. So when Derek went up, I was sitting in the back watching. And I'm sitting back there a couple of times. I'm looking like, ooh, you see that throw he made? Like, I'm like, whoa. I'm like, he was impressing during training camp then. And then when the Seattle game, and they threw him out there with us when Schaub was hurt, the way he marched down, and it was preseason, but it was against their ones. I mean, we marched down the field great. And I was like, man, this guy's, the way he came in that huddle and commanded it, it's like he's been there before.
Talk about the huddle. What's Derek like in the huddle?
He's a leader. He commands it. If he wants it solid, he's going to tell it solid. Like, I laugh sometimes. Like, bro, I come back, I walk back, I'm like, hey, you know you yelled at me.
Like, I know. He'll be just like, shut up, let's go. Like,
he doesn't curse.
No cursing.
Curse. That's one of the things I always mess with him about. Like, when he gets real mad, I go up to him, I'm like, I know what you wanted to say.
But he won't.
He doesn't curse, you know. He doesn't curse, but, you know, he'll let us know if we're talking and he's ready and it needs to be serious, he'll let us know. You know, me, I'm in my 11th year. He'll let me know, Donald, hey, let's go. I'll be all right. That's our quarterback. I have to do that because then the other guys see me do that and they know that they have to be in line when he tells them to do the same thing.
When you played the Raiders, you didn't only beat them, you pushed them around. Was it as a unit, the best game as a Raider?
I don't think we played our best game as the Raiders yet. I think we haven't got there yet. You know, I think we still are a long way from there. We feel good. We love where we're at now, but we haven't played our best. We haven't played a complete game, offense, defense, and special teams at once. But we were close against Denver. We were close.
It was impressive.
And it felt good, but we still haven't reached our full potential yet. And that's where we know that, and we're working hard to get there.
Obviously, Dallas offensive line, your offensive line are the two that everybody in the league's talking about. Everybody's like, Cowboys, Raiders, those are the two offensive line. Now, you've been in this league now 10, 11 years. You're a Pro Bowler. The new collective bargaining, Donald, there's not as much hitting. In fact, in the offseason, those young offensive linemen just disappear for months. Take me to a lot of people are saying offensive line play is not as good now because of the CBA. Do you believe that to be true?
Not at all. I feel like, the new CBA, the way they set it up with the hidden, I feel like I'm going to be able to play a little bit longer. And I feel like after I'm done playing now with the new CBA, I'll be able to play with my kids, probably a lot easier than I would if it was the old way. It might hurt the younger guys coming in now because
development.
They're not doing that. But for a guy like me who knows how to get prepared and knows how to get ready to play, it's very helpful for me. And I feel bad for those guys, coming in, because when I came in, I did all that hitting, and that really got me ready. But now where I'm at, I appreciate where the CBA is now because it really helps me being an older veteran guy.
When you get a touchdown pass, we'll show it again. That's a lot of love. Like most of you guys, you never get recognized. Did you get one in college? Like, you have 4 touchdowns? Like in high school, were you a tight end or something?
Nah, I was always an athlete. I played basketball my whole life. I didn't play football till my sophomore year of high school, and I always thought I was an athlete. I always had good hands, always could catch, but I was always just a big guy. So, I was quick on my feet. That's why I get good feet from basketball.
So you told Del Rio, you've told coaches, I can catch.
Oh yeah, I play catch all the time, like at practice, in between drills, stuff like that. That's how it started. I caught a tip pass in Tampa a couple of years ago, and I took it for 15 yards, and that's how I started chirping more and more. The
legend of Donald Penn was created.
That's how I started chirping more and more to the coaches, like, you see, because I had an example finally.
So Tampa, then you come to Oakland, and it's a losing culture initially. And Derek Carr goes 0-10, then he starts winning. So you've turned a losing culture into a winning culture. Take me into a locker room. You've been on teams that are bad, and now you're on a team that's really good. What's the difference between a bad and a good team? Is the locker room different?
It's hard to say. It's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You could say it's some bad things in the locker room. I don't think that was the point when I got here. I don't think that was the reason.
It wasn't. That's not why you were bad.
I don't think that was the reason.
Just didn't have players.
Yeah, I think it was that and the culture. It was a whole little culture change, a whole little shock, like a 360 when Del Rio came in, and he brought in a great coaching staff to support him. I love Tony Sparano. Don't get me wrong. I love that guy. He did a great job. I love that guy. I don't take nothing from him. But when Del Rio came in, he brought in a new culture. He brought in, Kenny Norton, a defensive coordinator that's out there making us compete because he's chirping and yelling, and he's talking more trash than us out there. So it's making you want to compete more in practice.
What are Raider practices like?
Oh, they're calmed down now because it's during the season. They can't be as fierce as they were because we won't be ready on Sunday. But
they were,
during OTAs and during training camp, we got after it. We got after it to a point where we had to say, calm down and say, hey, we're working at this together, not against each other. At the end of the day, we're going to perform as one, because at one point it didn't look like we were going to form as one because we were competing so much. But that competing and that work ethic against each other got us to 7-2.
This league is so close. The difference between good and very good and bad, it's plays. Yesterday, Denver and New Orleans, that game flip-flopped in 1 minute 3 times. That was ridiculous.
Who are you telling?
It's incredible. So you guys play New Orleans. And that's the first, I'm watching on television. And you're a left tackle, you're a Pro Bowler, and Jack Del Rio's like, all right, going to go for 2 in the win. And I'm sitting on my couch thinking, Del Rio's drunk. This is outrageous. So you're in the huddle. You don't do that. It's the first game of the year. He's going for 2. Honestly, when it came into the huddle, what did you think?
Well, this is the thing. I didn't put 2 and 2 together because when we huddled up right before we went out, and he came in, he said, hey, let's go down here. We're going to go down here and win the game.
Right.
So I'm still thinking we're going to go down here and get the tie, go to overtime. I wasn't thinking we're going to go down there, score, and he's going for 2. So we're in the huddle, and DC's like, he puts up the 2 fingers. And I'm like, oh, let's go. Let's do it, because we had 2 offensive tackles go down that game. I was playing right tackle. I haven't played right tackle in over 10 years.
Oh, so
I wanted to get the game over with because it felt horrible over there, and I was just out there just trying to survive. So when that call came out, I was all with it. I was like, let's go.
So what's the difference, left tackle to right tackle? You're a Pro Bowler on the left side, and you hate playing the right. What's the difference?
I'm left-handed. It's like trying to write with your right hand, especially after doing it for so long. If I would have practiced it and got a little comfortable with it, it wouldn't have been so bad, but I haven't been over there in And I don't know. I can't tell you last time I was over there.
High school maybe or something? You played
college. I played college. I started right tackle in college.
How come you ended up at Utah State? Why didn't UCLA, USC? I mean, good Lord, what are you, 6'6"? You're athletic. Why'd they overlook you?
I don't know, man. They really didn't recruit me. I went to one of their camps. I had a great camp, but hey, they overlooked me. It's their loss, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm glad I went to Utah State because I started 4 years there, and I was able to focus on football. And I ended up getting my degree because I don't think if I went anywhere else, I wouldn't have came out with my degree.
What'd you major in?
Sociology.
It's the study of people. What do you make of these people? Bunch of weirdos.
Nah, I like it. You guys calm, cool.
We are cool.
Relax.
Exactly. In total control right here. Hey, man, great meeting you.
Hey, you too.
Bye week, Houston, Carolina, boy, there's a lot of wins on that schedule. As long as they keep you at left tackle, not right. Donald Penn, it's the Herd. So of the multiple plays of the NFL and college football weekend, I don't think anything was bigger than this. Seattle and New England. I had no problem with a no call. Gronk in the corner. Everybody in the world knows what's going to happen. This is what New England does. They line up in the interior slot. Gronkowski, Cam Chancellor's going to guard him. Cam's the perfect guy in the league to guard him. Super athletic, kind of a hybrid player. Here's the call from Seattle's play-by-play guy.
Gronk goes to the far side. He's got Chancellor on him. Brady. He's going to throw the ball up for Gronkowski, who pushes off, and it's incomplete in the end zone. He pushed off, and the ball sails over his head in the end zone. With 11 seconds left on fourth down, the Seahawks are going to take over on the 1 yard line.
As you know, I always believe, I don't want to be political, but vote no on Proposition F, the fade pattern. It's low percentage, and I think at the end of the game, it's a very difficult play to run. Officials don't want to decide games. So late in the game, when you run that fade, you are less likely to get the call. Officials, not that they swallow their whistle, they don't want to decide games. That's why when you do alley-oops and Hail Marys at the end of games, you see a lot of contact. So I just think it's low percentage, and referees don't want to call that play. I mean, they will, but they don't want to. Here was Tom Brady afterwards.
I didn't see it. I mean, there was a lot of, there was always a lot of contact with that team. Sometimes you get the call, sometimes you don't.
What a good sport. Vote no on Proposition F. All right, Jerry in New York, we take a call. I said earlier today, I've seen 6 years of Cam Newton. I'm over it. He's a talented guy, but the attitude, the moods, the inconsistency, the low completion percentage, there's just young guys I like more, Jerry in New York. Go ahead.
I'm going to give you an analogy I think that is perfect for Cam Newton. Halle Berry. Beautiful woman, great actress, won an Oscar, and no guy wants to stay with her.
Oh.
He's right. I think Jerry in New York makes a very interesting point.
What do you mean no guy wants to stay with her?
She's been through at least, 10 to 12 guys, and after X amount of days, they all bailed. There's a reason why.
That's right.
A few weeks ago, Colin, people focused on what Cam Newton said at that press conference about taking hits that other quarterbacks don't take. But I think the point that they forgot is he did that after a win. The team was 1-5. They come out and win a game. They need to build some momentum. And this guy steps to the podium and makes it all about himself.
It's a good point.
Not after a loss, after a big win where the team needs to regroup, get back on track. His only focus is himself. When you look at Cam Newton, very talented guy, obviously all the physical tools, but the reality is when teams like that are winning, then you tolerate a guy like that. But when things aren't going well, then all of the personal issues that he has come to the forefront.
Yeah, that's a good call, Jerry. Hope you had a great week. That's a good call. It's a very good point.
Maybe Halle Berry left all of them.
No, I think Halle Berry's a pain. Listen.
When you look like her, you can be a little bit of a pain. Have you seen her?
Yeah.
She doesn't age. She gets better.
You know what, though?
What?
There's more to life than looks. It's what's on the inside.
You've never spoken truer words, Colin.
Not into all that superficial stuff. I want to meet somebody who is rock solid. I'm looking for a work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for decency and humanity. If they're hot,
has some baggage. You like baggage.
I love baggage.
I know you do.
John, you've known me for years. I enjoy baggage. I like been burned.
Yeah, I know.
I like that.
It's a weird trait to seek out, but you seem
He
to
really
do
does,
it.
though. That was one of the first things you told me. You love baggage.
Yeah, I like baggage. I don't know. Maybe I'm a saver. No,
you like to feel like they need you?
No, maybe I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. Should ask Donald Penn.
Maybe you have baggage, and so you feel like you want to have someone who can share in that with you?
Dude, I'm Samsonite. I have more baggage than Samsonite. I've got so much stuff. I'm a luggage company. I'm so excited. Not that I would ever partake, but I live in a state now with legal marijuana. It's going to change everything.
You could have I explained this to you, walk down the street to one of those places with the green cross and get a license.
I'm not going to walk into a store with a green cross.
Why not? Everyone does.
And some guy with his phone's like they did to Ezekiel Elliott on that Seahawks game. Hey, look at there's Cowherd in a building with a green cross. I'll be all over Instagram.
I bet you they have VIP green cross places where you can't have paparazzi.
Why don't you find one of those for me?
I know of one.
I've got chronic shoulder pain from carrying this network.
You could probably say that, and they would write you a prescription.
I think you can. I don't know this to be true.
No, you can walk in and say you have a headache, and they're like, "Here you go, have some weed."
As we learned earlier from your story, though, people don't believe it's you when they see you, so they won't know.
Be like, no, it's not me.
Plus, the guy will be baked.
And I would love to see you baked.
What song is that?
Some stoner song.
God, how do you know that?
I don't know. I've never smoked in my life, but I know a lot about it.
Yeah. Well, the other day I told my daughter, we were somewhere, and I'm like, ugh, it smells like pot. And my daughter goes, how do you know how it smells? And I'm like, 4 years of college.
You should have asked her how she knows how it smells.
Well, she didn't. She just, I went, I was outdoors somewhere in California, and I'm like, it smells like it. And she looked at me like, oh.
It smells like a skunk sometimes.
Yeah. Anytime you know something you shouldn't, just say, well, I went to college. Tomorrow on the show, one of the great all-time NFL players, he was Charles Haley. Oh, my God. Charles Haley was dominant. He was crazy. He was difficult. He was amazing. And he's a Hall of Famer. He is one of the most dominating physical players. There's a story about Bill Walsh. He saw 2 plays out of college. Bill Walsh watched 2 plays on a projector. Charles Haley turned the projector off and said, guys, let's get him. We don't need to see any more tape. That's how great Charles Haley was. Eric Dickerson, Mike Pereira, Mike Lombardi, Ian Rappaport, Donald Penn. Tomorrow, Charles Haley stops by, and the Herd Hierarchy. Remember good stuff today. I had so much fun this weekend. USC football looks like they're back. That'll make me happy. It's just a big weekend of good stuff. It's the Herd.